me welcome my good friend Dominic Windram from the UK. Dominic, a pleasure to see you, my friend.
Nice to meet you again, Rick. It's a long time since we've spoken, I think.
So, sir, we've touched base before, but why don't you give my listeners and watchers a sense of who Dominic Windram is, how long you've been writing, what is your inspiration? Sir, introduce yourself. Dominic Windram, my friend from the UK. Dominic, it's all yours, buddy.
Well, I have my own business, education business called Learning Made Easy, and I've been spending a lot of time on that business since January. So it's taken up most of my time. But in my spare time, I write poetry. I've actually just written over 6,000 poems in my
Fantastic.
career. Yeah, I mean, the thing was, we did meet last on a Solidarity for Palestine event, and the video was deleted, but they said it was due to technical glitches. So I wasn't very happy about that. So I'm glad you've given the opportunity to read the poem. I don't know whose poem it was that caused the issue. But...
Well, you raised an important point. There are poets who, shall we say, treat more on the emotional life, some who treat on environmental, what we might call pastoral themes, and there are others who address a wide variety of themes, issues, concerns. You are obviously a man not only of deep philosophical underpinning, shall we say, but also a man who addresses societal concerns as well. So you're an educator. Obviously, you spend a lot of time trying to help people understand, help them learn. But talk about your poetry. You do address a wide range of issues, don't you?
Yeah, I have a very eclectic taste, ranging from romantic poetry rather, nature poetry, political, philosophical, satirical, you name it. I mean, covers a wide range.
Satirical in this world, huh? there's an expression, shooting fish in a barrel comes to mind with some of the political satire we can write today, right?
Yes.
So, when did you start writing?
I think I was 16. I think it was around the time I was studying Romeo and Juliet, what we call GCSE level. And I started writing a few poems kind of in that style, Shakespearean style. And I was listening to a lot of pop lyrics at the time. I still think pop lyrics still inspire me in the poetry writing as well. Obviously, people like Bob Dylan, Scott Walker influenced me a lot.
And let me ask you this. Obviously, you spend a lot of time teaching. Do you participate in live poetry readings as well, and the Zoom universe of poetry?
Well, I used to appear in my local area, but that's quite a while ago now. I don't bother with that. It wasn't really for me. It was quite a parochial scene. So I do prefer these exchanges we have, more global.
Yeah, I think I have relocated about 4 years ago to Tennessee, the sort of central mountain region of the U.S. from
Yes.
a location where I'd been for some time. And in one sense, there are similarities that there was really only one or two places you could go within 50 miles to perform. And as you say, the concerns were more local and personal. And what Zoom provides us is an opportunity to speak to a larger audience of global concerns and people who are in fact engaged in thinking about global space, whether it be environmental or political, that sort of thing. So let me ask you this: when you write, are you the kind of writer that says, well, today I'm going to write, now I'll pick a theme, now I'll write something, or are you more a poet who says, inspiration, I'll write about that? So are you inspiration driven, or are you, shall we say, the practical, who insist on writing every day simply because you want to hone your craft?
We usually get inspired by things that are happening now in the news or uh, personal life, things like that. But I read an awful lot, so I get ideas from things that I read, magazines or novels, textbooks. But sometimes when I'm teaching, we'll be covering something, I get an idea for uh, things like that. It's sort of what's the word?
Now,
Serendipity. Serendipity is a big thing.
there are so many issues for the concerned person to pay attention to, whether it be environmental concerns in general, wildlife concerns, global warming concerns, and then, of course, there's the political arena where civic and civil issues, whether it be healthcare or housing or borders, there's so many, as I said, target rich environment. Is you find yourself as a writer drawn to certain global or civic issues more often than not?
I think the thing that's concerned me for the last 20 years, I've read a lot of it, is the Palestinian situation. That's my main concern. I'm really strong on that. Yeah, I've read a lot of it, and it seems to me the more you know about it, the worse it is when you engage with other people who've got most of their ideas from watching the news, whether they admit that or not. And it's very difficult to engage in conversation. So I felt like I can do it through poetry.
I know for myself, when I read T.E. Lawrence's books about his
Yeah,
war experience and his work with the Arabian Peninsula, shall we say, in general, the insight that I gained, and there's one quote of his that just stuck so firmly in my head. He said, if the West continues to tamper with the population of the, shall we say, the Middle East in general, the more engaged we're going to be in warfare, because the needs of that population are so different than, should we say, Western extraction mentality, And
yeah.
if you guys continue to do this, your grandchildren are going to be back here fighting. Well, if that wasn't prophetic. And, the issues of cooperation or confrontation when it comes to the Palestinian issue, it's just it's such a shame that cooler heads have not prevailed. And of course it's devastating, and I would argue genocidal what's happening now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, retribution uh, is just completely inappropriate and out of scale, just completely out of scale. No one would argue that people don't deserve to defend themselves, but there's defense and there's what's happening, and that is not defense, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's not. No.
You recently had an election over there
Oh
in the UK.
yes, general election.
What,
Yes.
what are some of your thoughts on the recent UK election, sir?
Well, it's a bit like it's getting like America. There's not much difference between the two parties, Labour or Conservative. It's Tweedledum or Tweedledee. I voted for the Workers' Party. I didn't get a George Galloway. It was his party. He's an activist for the Palestinian cause. I voted for that party. He was a candidate in my hometown. So I voted for that. I didn't want to go for the, as George says, two cheeks of the same backside. Yeah, I didn't want to go for that. But obviously, Labour had a landslide victory. Just I think because the Tories were so bad, so that's what worked. They just go from one to the next. And what the BBC and the like do is they just document the rise and fall of these two. That's basically all they do. Quite depressing.
In a way, I find myself in a situation where now those of us who pay close attention to media have had a critique of corporate media for a long time. We have our problems with corporate media, but the blanket denunciation of all media that we see here in the, should we say, the know nothing contingent, the MAGA contingent. I find it difficult to say, well, you still have to pay attention. And you have to pay attention to a variety of media, not one source. My God,
Yeah.
if you're trying to pay attention to just one source to get your information, you're going to be misled. There's just no other way to think of it. And when you combine this, should we say, media unsophistication with a blanket science denial, or a blanket, all the experts are automatically bad because they're experts, that kind of stuff, I think it's going to be very difficult, societally speaking, to recover from that kind of thinking. I mean, I've heard people make the case for a flat Earth. Well, my God, what is their thinking process to come to conclusions like that? And then, of course, during the last election cycle, there were people arguing that there was a secret Jewish laser in space by heating up forest fires. And, that's people who think like that, how far are they away from leprechauns and the Easter Bunny?
That's one of the problems with the internet. Is very much a double-edged sword. There's all this, it abounds with these wacky conspiracy theories. But on the other side of it, social media, I mean, I don't think we complain about it, but it does offer an alternative perspective, doesn't it? Alternative media is really interesting. You can get really good debates on that. But the trouble is, a lot of people just go for the conspiracy theories. One of the politicians in the UK, Michael Portillo, is not somebody I'm particularly a fan of, but he says that conspiracy theories are for the intellectually lazy, and I quite like that.
Well, I remember way back to the dawn of the internet, and those of us who were proponents of this new medium said, your ability to access relatively obscure information, you didn't have to go to the encyclopedia that you bought 5 years ago. You can get source information right now. What I think we failed to appreciate was that not only could you get good information easily, you can get bad information very easily. And should we say pre-cooked agenda information, even easier still.
Yes.
So tell me, what issues in addition to Palestine are you focused on these days?
In the UK, it would be workers' rights, things like that. Because the Labour Party, I mean, they just don't listen to the white working class anymore. They've become like what's the word? Politically correct entity, just trying to please certain fringe groups, and not. It's very dangerous because the white working class feel like they betrayed. They'll join far right groups, the populism and that. That's what concerns me. Yeah, the Labour Party was formed out of to give working class people a voice, and it seems to have betrayed its roots completely. Jeremy Corbyn was pushed out, and then this guy that's come in, Starmer, he was a former QC, and he came from absolutely nowhere. It's old to politics, and apparently he was responsible for Assange's imprisonment. I've read somewhere. Julian Assange has just been released, so I think he's quite a scary guy, this Starmer. Yeah. Very establishment.
Yeah. Now I understand that the new government has promised, at least, to try to improve the healthcare situation. Do you think that's going to happen?
Well, the thing with Labour, they say that, but Tony Blair brought on privatisation in before the Conservatives got in. They're just good at blaming each other. We'll see what happens. But for example, I'll give you a great example of how democracy should work. In my hometown, we currently don't have a hospital. When I was a kid, we used to have four hospitals, 3 or 4 hospitals. Now we've got none. And it's a great example of if we had participatory democracy, it doesn't matter if it's Tory or Labour, I'm sure most people in this town would vote to bring back a hospital. But we don't have that. So if there was a referendum on it, we get one tomorrow. So I'm dubious as to what they're going to do with the health service.
Well,
I mean, it's 100,000 people here, so I think it needs a hospital.
yeah. Yes, unfortunately, we still live by and large under for-profit medicine, which if any, guarantees your bankruptcy first. I recently had a bout of cancer, and while I'm under a government healthcare system right now, I got a bill that said that if I was the one paying, it would have been over $100,000 for each of the 6 treatments that I received, the chemotherapy. And, you know, my wife and I looked at each other and thought, you mean we could have been over $500,000 in debt for just this one illness? It's preposterous. How profit medicine is just a horrendous curse. I think every bit equal to whatever the benefits of, quote, modern medicine are. If you can't afford it, then it's not medicine.
I think that was one of the greatest achievements of the Labour Party post World War II was to bring in health service. There's a guy called Nye Bevan who's a great politician. He instigated that. I just worry about the current crop of Labour politicians. I don't have the same principles.
I did some traveling in Eastern Europe a few years back, and one of the what's a nice way of saying, one of the typical Americans on the tour started sort of loudly proclaiming how wonderful it must be for you Czechoslovakians to no longer be under communist tyranny. And the speaker, our tour guide, said, well, number one, Czechoslovakia doesn't exist. There is the Czech Republic and Slovakia. That's first. And then the other thing is, she said, I understand what you're saying. And I'm sure that your intentions are good. I said, but she said, but what this doesn't speak to is the fact that under the communist rule, everyone had a home, everyone had access to food, everyone had medical care, and that seniors were cared for. Well, now we don't have medical care, we don't have jobs, we don't have guaranteed place to live, and there is no senior care. Hooray! It doesn't look wonderful to a lot of people.
And then the Czech Republic have to put up with all these hen parties and things now.
And my fellow Americans sort of shut up at that point.
Yeah.
But you know, it is how we move from this capitalism red in fang and claw to something more humane is, I think, the dilemma for our children, sadly. And
well, even if capitalism was regulated properly, it wouldn't be so bad. But it's not, is it?
Well, you see here, and I'm sure you hear the same argument over there, that any regulation is a constraint on the rich. And this regulation is the death of society. And what I try to remind people is regulation is how your safe water is guaranteed. Regulation is how your streets are maintained. Regulation is how your medicine is maintained safely. So if you want to dispense with regulation, do you really honestly want to dispense with safe medicine, safe food, safe water, safe sewage? Is that your idea of a goal? And they usually shut up at that point.
Good.
So, my friend, would you like to share a few of your recent poems with us?
Yeah, would you like me to start off with the one that
Anything you want.
we didn't get to see? Let's just say. Right, it's quite a long one. It's called The Negotiating Table, and it's
Please go for it.
inspired by Mona Hatoum's performance piece from 1983. It was inspired by the Sabra Shatila massacre that happened in September 1982. Something that I would have been totally unaware of at the time. I just moved into a new house with my family, a new school, perfectly good lifestyle. Was unaware of the suffering of those people. The Israeli-backed Phalange militia killed between 2,000 and 3,500 Palestinians within 2 days. They were refugees, so many women and children because the men were elsewhere. So here it goes. This room is stark and ominous, yet it can still stir some of us from zero state of consciousness, or dismantle all settlements of the psyche. Curious minds seek to know more about conflict and not less. Unmoved spectres are ever watchful. Oh, this room is dark, lit only by a light bulb over a table on which the probing artist lies still, motionless. Empty chairs surround the table. The artist's body is clearly bloodstained, covered with entrails. Her body is tightly wrapped in plastic, and surgical gauze seems to cling leech-like to her head and countenance. As the eerie soundtrack plays in the blind, frenzied background, droning, deceitful voices can be heard. Each bland, disembodied voice appears to merge with all the others, endlessly in maddening loops, signifying nothingness. Media spotlights are primed by propaganda. Across these wrinkled airwaves, the beating of drums, flags are draped over contrived backdrops, microphones prepared for empty suits and smooth operators. It's just the same as it ever was, ever was. The children are gone. Repeat, the children are gone. Oh, shame on the West. Shame on you, Netanyahu. Occupation is brutal. Violence begets violence. Alas, conspiracies of silence strip away context. We must know this history. Kundera once quipped that a struggle of people against power is a struggle of memory against forgetting. Or never forget, never ever forget war crimes. Yet the light has not yet been buried entirely. Under the rubble, seeds still grow. Corrupt centres are now being deconstructed. Break these fake mirrors. Let true peace seep through the cracks. Thank you.
Bravo, sir. Bravo.
So that's the one that was erased along with the other people's poetry. So I don't know if there was anything controversial about that.
Right. Except the people who believe that one side is always right, you know.
Yeah.
Please read on, brother. Read on.
Okay. Well, I know you wrote one, composed a poem about Columbia University, didn't you? You sent me it in a Facebook message. So you inspired me to write one about. It's actually a sonnet. I've got a sonnet here. Didn't realize I turned it into a sonnet. So it's to Columbia University. It's on a similar theme, obviously. Columbia University, please divest from corrupt companies supporting genocide. Many of your faculty members and students are in complete solidarity with Palestine. Columbia University, please allow the raising of consciousness. Free speech should be sacrosanct, yet your president kowtows to corporate power and the military-industrial complex. If you are still a place of higher learning and thought, you must recognize the right to protest that which is beyond the pale. I ask, as more and more people in Palestine die, are we expected to suspend sound reason and then eliminate conscience? I don't understand.
Very good, sir. Very good. You know, I think one of the functions of poets in general is to speak the unsaid, to remind people of the truth, because in our hypocritical society, sometimes the obvious can't be said, and that's a shame. but trust the heart of a poet to speak honest and true. Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, this one is kind of semi-autobiographical, a little bit different from the ones I've just read out. Yeah. So it's called "The Poet Dwells Among Them." Amongst grey rocks of bigotry, I am a skybound protean one. Amongst weary flesh and bone, I am a spirit of enchantment. Among gnarled roots and thorns, I am a singular blood-red rose. Amid stern, authorized answers, I am a bold, burning question. Amongst beauty's perfect, sacred skin, I am the profane, fresh wound. Amidst the blazing light of technology, I am the dark shadow of doubt. Amidst the speed of modern life, I am the patient meditator. Amidst corrupting power, I am the innocent lamb. Amongst family and friends, I am the stubborn recluse. Amidst media misinformation, I am the slow arrow of wisdom. Amongst tarnished flags, I am the purifying flame. Amidst illegal wars, I am the resolute deserter. Amidst the rubble of brutal occupation, I am the ragged fragments of truth. Amongst wintry, august gods, I am the spring-like iconoclast. Amongst great, raging religions, I am the small, silent prayer.
Bravo, sir. Bravo.
Another one?
Please, please.
This is a bit lighter, I think. It's called In Spring's Green Age. I always like to write poems about the beauty of nature. In spring's green age, the music of the trees, streams, and ponds stirred our curious psyches. We were reborn in the midst of milky white and rose pink blossoms. Even the leaves whispered their secrets to us patiently. We were one with a warm world. Boundaries were unknown to us. Oh, we were as free as the wild birds that soared in seemingly endless skies. All the colours of our dreams spread across our little realities, and time itself seemed like eternity.
Lovely. Lovely.
Did you mention the UK general election? Would you like to hear one about
Please.
that?
Absolutely.
So it's just simply called the UK general election 2024. All the BBC News team ever seems to do is to chart the rise and fall of Tweedledee and Tweedledum. That is Labour red and Tory blue. That's why nothing changes in this bygone land. Or will the Westminster bubble never be burst? State propaganda promotes the notion that we have a choice. Yes, alas, it's a choice of the worst kind between the same old political elites.
Very good. Very good.
I don't know. Yeah, I was going to see if I get some on a different screen. Oh, two become one. Oh, yeah. This poem has just been chosen for. I don't know. I've ever seen anything on October Hill. I get our poems published quarterly in this American magazine called October Hill, and I've just accepted this one. It was one that was left over from. I think it was from February. I'm quite proud of this one. So it's two become one. Like stray wayward birds, we find it difficult to discover blissful and sullied sanctuary. Or we are riddled with burning questions that blaze through fraught lifetimes. Easy answers are not for us. We lament love's lack of worth in these trembling days. All things have a price in a disposable age. Yet between I and now lies Buba's sacred place. So we often come together in the rhythms of mutual wings, which are always open to wider worlds. We share disdain for parochial ways and means. Henceforth we fly to new horizons, as soulmates reborn. When fearful winds blow our way, we glide through winter and seek first stirrings of spring.
Very nice.
So as you can see, I've been quite busy with my poetry. Just looking for another one. Yeah, that maybe we could have another one on. I've got quite a lot in Palestine, and I say I haven't been able to read them out anywhere. So, what is it there? Ah, that's it. Like you were saying, you called it for what it was, didn't you? Genocide. So it's called genocide in real time. Yeah. The bombs keep dropping and the buildings keep burning. The blood keeps pouring and the bones keep splintering. The West still closes its eyes to all the horrors unfolding daily, even though they appear on million screens in real time. Panoramic views are revealing, yet many choose to look elsewhere. Close-ups of corpses provoke cold steel responses. Political elites cow to propaganda. No one among them deviates from hackneyed scripts. No one bothers to even lift a finger to end genocide. Evil is now normalized as innocence is buried. The ragged other is alas dehumanized.
Very nice.
Have you got any poems, Rick?
Well, sure, I could read one. Let me conjure up one of my recent ones. Here we go. I have, since I was in a healing process, I decided that I would try to write some out and out positive things because
Yes.
I find that my political work tends to be rather cynical and sarcastic. So I decided I was going to make an effort to write some very positive things. So let me share this one with you. This is called A Sudden Outbreak. A sudden outbreak of good judgment, it seems, is even far better, it seems, than our dreams. It amazed them all from corners to call a sudden outbreak of courtesy and tolerance. Right over the backyard fence, in the streets of the town, and by gum all around, courtesy grew. It could happen to you. Generosity grew ferociously. They vied and strived to be nice and would not hide. They even shared their lemonade ice. They invited friends over to dine, because after all there was time, even time for some sparkling wine. He met the neighbors next door, pushed the chairs off the floor, made room for some dancing. Even their horses and kiddies were prancing. There were block parties where no one got hot. Even Harry said sorry, and the girls and the boys shared their favorite toys. No one would scold, not the young, not the old. They needed no urging, not even from nurses or surgeon. Walk on my grass, they put up signs so it would last. Better than brothers, even uncles and cousins treated each other like kin. It was, in fact, how we'll win. Just a little more care from in here and out there. It was clear, holding as we do, that all life is dear, and so it would hopefully appear. Down the street, it was neat. Friendships grew, and by golly, I even met you and your neighbor Sally from down the hill and across the alley.
Yeah, nice one.
Let me share one more, sort of in the same vein, but just a little different. This is called My Favorite Philosopher. My favorite philosopher is Lao Tzu. You might be thinking, Lao who? The simplicity of his thinking appeals to me. He requires very little belief, as well you might see. The local tribe in the place where I was born preferred a religion that I came to spurn. It's not that it's foolish, it's not that it's dumb, but despite how long practice, they don't seem to understand how it's done. He references water and finds wisdom there, yet his worshippers find no necessity to bind him to a chair. The knowledge you need you will find within. It's not about at all worshiping him. Letting go with Lao Tzu is an important theme. All this maintaining of formalities and posing of schemes often does little for us than stifling our dreams. One of his favorite stories he explains very well. It's the dream of the butterfly you'll hear he proposes in this spell. He dreams he's a butterfly, but awake he's a man. But in the end, which is realer, on which foot does he stand? Each moment of perception has something to tell. To contend one is realer seems pointless as well. Here's an example of his sort of teaching. You'll see in an instant the goal that he's reaching. If you want to become whole, let yourself be partial. If you want to become straight, let yourself be crooked. If you want to become full, let yourself be empty. If you want to be reborn, let yourself die. If you want to be given everything, give everything up. This sort of elegant thinking, it seems, pulls the most of expectations apart at the seams. The example he left us in fable and guide, all that pretentious striving can be left by the side. Simplicity, silence, listening within. You're always in church, divinity and simplicity with no banners to spin. Another example of his wisdom sheds very much light. I urge you, give a listen. You could get it right. Kindness in words creates confidence. Kindness in thinking creates profoundness. Kindness in giving creates love. I have read many translations of books of wisdom, and very much goodness I have found within them. But the simple train of Lao Tzu's thinking gives me guidance and simple wisdom for living. I first saw the word Zen when I was a child. My gentle Uncle Gene had several books with it. He was gentle and mild. A man of the world, a ham operator, globally connected, it was to him gold. And although I've read widely in religion, and over the years the inclusivity has brought me to this decision. I've read from the Bible, the Koran and such. I've also read from the Ramayana, the Upanishads much. I've read from the Egyptian and Tibetan books of the dead and learned so much wisdom, and it ultimately sheds much light you might find the celestial and divine. In simplicity of Zen, I sense much refined. Take any road, I urge you, my chum, with elaborate ritual or in silence you come. To the simplest truth you'll find when you come. You'll find me, my friend, here and now, in the flowing clear river of Zen. The wise man is one who knows what he does not know. All streams flow to the sea because it is lower than they are. Humility gives it its power.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Lao Tzu myself. It's a massive impact on the way I've set my business up and everything, the way I teach.
Yeah.
I got really tired of syllogistic logic, in philosophy. I think that it's a totally different approach, isn't it? The instant thinking. Yeah.
When I was a young writer, my very first pen name that I chose was Vance Tao, T-A-O.
Yeah.
And then later, again, still influenced by Zen, I, I chose War and Peace, W-A-R-R-E-N, peace. But let me hear more of the good works of Dominic Windram, please.
Yeah, this is more metaphorical. It's not about specific events. Okay? It's more feeling. Yeah. Sons of, it's called. Sons of brute darkness, embrace the feminine light. You must relinquish the steel of your control and break open your hands, as love cannot ever hope to prosper within your clenched, fatuous fists of stone. I say let flowers of sweet faithfulness unfold in vast springtimes of teeming mercy and grace, as I see bitter hatred, absolution in the dreadful abyss of night, and strain like gnarled roots against wise arrows of time. Sons of cold fathers, look to the warm children's land. Its profound flows of innocence will set you free, and you can begin again with newborn longings. Sons of brute darkness, embrace the feminine light. Yep.
Very nice, sir. Very nice. You've written some brilliant, what I'm going to call religious or theological poetry. Would you like to share a few of those, sir?
I don't think I've got any of those with me.
Oh, well, okay. Well, please read what you have handy.
See if I've got anything left. I might have gone through them all, I think. Oh yeah, he's a short one. Yeah. Do you remember the was it the ICC, the International Court? Yeah, they took South Africa took Israel to court, didn't they? Well, anyway, this is quite an interesting story. The BBC showed the, the Israeli people defending themselves, but they didn't put the South African prosecution on. So again, bias. Yeah, it's very.
Yeah.
It's a quite. It's just called lies, gaslighting, and cherry picking. A justice is caught, the accused engage in lots of lies, gaslighting, and cherry picking, or they constantly deflect from their war crimes. Yet we know they're involved in genocide. I've been responding a lot to what's been happening, so I must have written about 30 odd poems on this. Yeah. Just one thing after another.
Absolutely.
It certainly wouldn't have me on the BBC.
You have a little bit more time if you want to read a few more.
I haven't got any more.
Oh, well, in that case, that's fine. Then let me ask you this.
If I had loads of them, yeah, seem to go quick.
No problem. If you were meeting with a young writer and
Yeah.
they asked you, is poetry worthwhile? Is poetry worth doing, or should I go in some other direction? What do you say to a young poet who's wondering, does poetry matter?
Well, I'd perhaps quote Shelley when he said, "The poets are the unacknowledged legislators of the world." There is a room for poetry, yeah, definitely. Just I don't know. Sometimes it's not got mass appeal like other art forms, but I think it's well worth it. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for visiting with us, Dominic. It was wonderful to see you again.
Hopefully, I'll see you shortly. We'll be
Absolutely, and may all your
we used to meet up nearly every week, didn't we? With that other group.
Thank you so much for your kindness and sharing your time. I wish you every success, and may all your students be appreciative.
No, thank you, Rick. Bye-bye.
Okay, take care. Dominic Windram here with Poets of the East. Thank you, my brother. Bye-bye.
Take care, Rick.